It's time for world politics and no lack of news in the political lane, that's for sure, because there are plenty of things happening in those political lanes, and it'll be interesting to see what people's thoughts about the number of things that are going on, including right here in the United States, because apparently there is a Speaker of the House that is apparently may be coming into office and all along those lines. So it definitely looks like we're heading toward a Scalise Speaker of House kind of situation and all in that kind of way. And we'll see if folks are glad about that or not glad about that as we get around to hearing folks' thoughts. I did hear that one person was complaining. I think it was actually a member of not the squad, but a member of the MAGA caucus, because they were saying that they were upset that he was going to be the Speaker of the House because apparently Mr. Scalise is a cancer survivor. So that is something that is going on as well. So apparently that is part of what is the nature of the conversation. And there are some people that are holding out on naming him speaker because they are concerned about him being a cancer survivor and that could actually come back into play as well. So I did hear that in the news earlier, and I'd be interested to see whether folks think that the health issues need to be a concern, especially if you are supposedly in remission and all along those lines. But it'll be interesting to see what Jim Eade and others have to say. But that is definitely what is going on, as there is definitely an effort to try to unify behind their speaker nominee, because Scalise is the speaker nominee, but there are some folks that are holding out, so he hasn't been officially named and all along those lines. But we'll see what folks' thoughts are around that and whether we should be concerned about his having had cancer in the past. And as me and Kim were talking about earlier, there are some new candidates that are out there as well, including a new independent candidate. So apparently Aaron Day, who is very much into the crypto space, has said that he's going to be running as an independent presidential candidate. He was a Republican and a long shot Republican candidate, but now he is going to be running as an independent. And we all know that RFK recently announced as an independent, and we're still waiting to see what No Labels is going to present as their candidate. So there could be as many as 3 or 4, maybe even strong candidates that are independent. So this could be a very interesting political conversation. You know, there are a lot of folks that follow and are admirers of Cornel West, and he is also running as an independent as well. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these people don't pull from either the Republican or the Democratic nominees, the presumed favorites, who are both Biden on the Democratic side and Trump on the Republican side. Even though one of the candidates that just recently pulled out, I think that was Will Hurd, has thrown his endorsements behind Nikki Haley, and Nikki Haley is definitely doing well in terms of being a strong second or maybe a strong third, but is definitely in the conversation, even though right now it might be a conversation about being vice president, because it is a runaway lead for that former president, Mr. Trump, and all in that kind of space. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and whether these third-party candidates have any pull or anything along those lines. So I'm going to bring in one of the ladies of the house, one of the bosses of this network, that being Kim Calhoun, see what she's got to say about some of these things that I brought up. We've also got Jim Eade with us as well. And of course, we've got Sasha Starr. And of course, there's even speculation that maybe Gavin Newsom will jump into the race as well. And he's over there in your neck of the woods, Jim, and all in that space. So definitely, but he had a whole heap of vetoes on. Some of them were popular, some of them were not popular. I know he went after that dye, I think it's red dye number 9 or something like that. So he went after that, and he went after a couple of other things as well. So maybe these will make him more favorable as a candidate or in that kind of space. But it'll be interesting to see what you've got to say about that and whether he is a strong candidate. And are you even worried about Aaron Day? Because I just recently, me and Kim were talking earlier, are learning that he is very big on crypto, and apparently that might be part of his platform because he was a libertarian. Apparently he ran as a libertarian candidate for governor of New Hampshire. I don't believe he won that seat, but he did run for it. And apparently he's very big on decentralization and even some things around crypto as well. but he is definitely put his name in there as one that is going to run. So he's joining Mr. Kennedy, and now we got Mr. Day, and we've got Cornel West. And like I said, we are waiting to find out. And I think that they said that they were going to wait and find out that they had a clear path to victory. That is what David Walker has said several times on shows with us here on Pod TV. Is that if they can find a clear path to victory, then they will name who their candidate is going to be. But I don't think they're going to do that until they see a clear path to victory that is conceivable and all along those lines. So any possibility of either of these candidates having any consequences in the presidential race and everything? Because apparently, like I said, this gentleman, Aaron Day, is very much into that whole decentralization conversation and is very much into the whole notion of crypto and everything in that space. So there's a couple other things that he has been saying as well, but he's apparently not happy with the Republicans, so he wants to throw his name into the hat as a independent. So have you heard of this gentleman, Aaron Day, and does he stand any chance whatsoever?
If you're asking me,
I was actually asking Jim, but if you want to jump into it, please do, Sasha.
Did you ask anything? Okay, here is my statement. I will not spend a second of my time to discuss complete nonsense. The floor is yours.
I think we know where Sasha stands. I think Gavin Newsom is not going to run, so you can throw him out of this non-discussion. I think you're going to be interested, Mark. In tomorrow's Change Your Mind, I'm going to have a guest who's for 29 years a senior fellow at the Cato Institute, which is a libertarian organization, and I'm going to get his opinion about Day, and he's going to be so incredibly more informed than I am about this guy that I'll wait until tomorrow before I voice any opinion about him. But RFK, 4 of his relatives came out and said they're ashamed of him for running, and so take that into consideration. Cornel West, I love listening to him. I love the fact that he's challenging Joe Biden for a debate, and he would be great debating anyone. It'd be very entertaining for me. But Cornel, don't run. Come on, give us a break.
Since you want entertainment and all along those lines, there is a very popular show. I know that a lot of people are familiar with the show that I'm getting ready to mention and everything, but there is another new Democratic candidate that is going to run as well, because there is a show, I think it's on cable, if I'm remembering correctly. It is kind of the opposite of the Fox News view and everything. That is the show, The Young Turks. And apparently one of the leaders of The Young Turks has announced on today that he is going to run for president. Unfortunately, there is some question as to whether he can run for president because he was born in Turkey. He wasn't born here in the United States, but hey, he's going to throw his name into the hat as well. So any thoughts around that? Because The Young Turks is a very popular show, particularly among many of the millennials and the Gen X folks. And definitely it is seen as almost like a opposite viewpoint of some of the viewpoints that come from Fox. And I'm not saying that they are always totally against each other, but they definitely take different views, and one that might be more progressive and another that might be more conservative. But any thoughts around
words, Ben? They're Young Turks, but they're also from Turkey. So okay, yeah, but I don't know them and I can't comment on them. And generally speaking, what we have is a two-party system, and as Sasha says, these third-party candidates. What we saw in Ross Perot when he ran can have an effect on the outcome of the election. Ross Perot siphoned off enough votes to have made a difference in when Al Gore was running. I think that people have always thought that it's a disservice to draw votes from one particular party. If you run and you draw votes from both of them, great, I would applaud you. But if you're running and you're just going to siphon votes off from one side or the other, why are you doing it? You're harming the person that you're more associated with. You seem to side with one party and you're hurting that party. So why? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, but that's been going on for a while. One of the other things that me and Kim were talking about earlier, and she can jump in if she chooses to and everything, but there was a gentleman that had a strong campaign in the Democratic run the last time before we elected Biden. And apparently he is also running as an independent, and definitely a lot of people that are in the technology lanes will be interested to see what his viewpoints are. But apparently another person that we haven't been hearing a lot from, but apparently he's out there as well, is Andrew Yang. And apparently Yang has even formed his own group. I think it's called the Freedom or something like that. But definitely he is one that back 4 years ago got a lot of support and definitely mobilized a lot of the young vote and everything.
Another guy I admire and I like, but I don't understand why you would run. In the primary, sure, take them on. And if you get if you win, great. But if you don't win in the primary, why are you running? You're only going to hurt the party that you seem to care about. So to me, it's nonsensical for someone like Cornel West, someone like Andrew Yang to run as an independent. I don't understand it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if there gets any retraction on his party. I think it's called Forward or something like that, because they are kind of like Unity. They're saying that they're left, they're not left, they're not right, they're forward. So that is why they're calling their political forward and all along those
4 years ago. Yeah, I liked him, but he didn't win. He didn't get enough votes.
Definitely did not get enough votes. Hey, I mentioned earlier, and I'd love to hear folks' thoughts about this and everything. Do we care about the health of folks and when they are going up for these seats and all along those lines? Because this is becoming the conversation. There is definitely some folks, including some of the people that are part of the MAGA wing of the political lane, that are upset at Scalise and are saying that maybe he needs to step down from even running, because apparently he has had cancer in the past and is a cancer survivor. Last time I checked, cancer isn't always 100%. Well, I mean, with life is terminal, because we all going to die at some point, as Sasha likes to point out, and often we all are going to be born and we will have a death date as well, but it's not a death sentence in the sense that you're going to die immediately. So I don't know that needs to be something that rules you out of leadership and everything.
I really want to jump in on this, but I want to hear, Kim, what you have to say about it first, and then I'm going to pile on.
About which one?
About this idea that he's had cancer, so he's no longer a contender for a speaker. Some people are saying that. I find that appalling. I wondered what you thought.
Well, I don't think just because, I think if you're a survivor, then you should be given even more opportunity to do more things. Being a survivor in any disease or any situation just makes you a stronger person, more empathetic to other situations. Your mind's a whole lot, I believe your mind's a whole lot open. I mean, I'm a survivor. So
I'm a survivor.
It's
appalling to me that someone would say that about someone who's survived something like that.
I don't think people are thinking anymore is what I think is the problem. I think they're just shooting off the hip and they're being rude and distasteful. They're using fake news about the war to drive their political ticket. Just trying to get people stirred up over nothing, and they shouldn't. So I think that this whole idea that just because somebody survived cancer that they shouldn't be a candidate for anything is a pathetic person to even say that. That's what I'm going to say. Sorry.
No. I asked you to chime in because that's how I felt, and I thought you would feel the same way.
Of course.
Sasha, you agreed? Is this something that you would say, the guy's had cancer, therefore I can't support him?
I think that I would support anyone who has survived. So
yeah. My goodness, to go through something like that and come out the other side teaches you a lot about life and what's important.
And anyone to say that they wouldn't is something's wrong with them. They don't need to be in office themselves because they don't understand what it takes. I mean, if you would make a comment like that to begin with, then you don't need to be in office. You have no commitment to the community whatsoever. Your mindset's closed to I mean, are we going to sit here and just, wipe the earth clean of all the sick people? I mean, come on. That's not what we're about, but for someone to even come to that conclusion, I think they're very wrong. It's just like, what's his name, Getz, when he got up there and, he said that McCarthy shouldn't be the speaker because he wasn't pulling for the right political party. He wasn't pulling for Republicans. He's not supposed to be there to pull for the Republicans or Democrats. He's there for the people. They're all there they have forgotten who they serve. All of them. They have
I agree with you on that.
who they serve. They serve us. They don't serve a political party. They all should be fired to begin with. Because if you sit there and you think that you're there serving a Republican Party or Democrat Party, then get your butts out of that office. Because you're not serving you, Mark, me, or even Sasha. Because if all you're worried about is your political party, then what's going to happen is not going to benefit the world. So
we used to see that all the time when people would take a stand opposite their party because they said, I have to answer to the people back home. And the people back home want me to say this, and this is what I'm saying to you. And then, their party would get upset with them. Actually, the Democratic Party used to get upset with Joe Biden quite a bit for doing just that. And so, we used to have those
Biden. They got upset with. Yeah, it wasn't just Biden. There was some definitely. It wasn't just Biden. There was definitely some activist types that were upset at Obama because Obama came from quote unquote the grassroots, and I know that some people within the grassroots community were expecting massive wholesale kind of changes when he came into the presidency because I don't think that they understood the nature of politics and that you have to do coalition building and all along those lines. They were expecting there to be some changes that were not going to be able to be accomplished immediately because he had to do some politicking and definitely had to do some walking across the aisles. And I wish that we would see more of that taking place even across the world.
No, I agree.
love it, politicking.
Yeah, but we used to be across the aisle. That is part of the definition of most of the mature senators and representatives. But Newt Gingrich in the 1990s took out what I call the contract on America. And he just wanted to, if you were going to vote against the Republican Party, you were going to get primaried. So they all started to line up in line and they would become, mass voting by Republicans. So you didn't get that team building, that the consensus building. You didn't have the ability to walk across the party lines because you would get primaried. You wouldn't get your job. You wouldn't keep your job if you crossed the party line. And
so speaking of crossing party lines, we have a very interesting situation in the state that me and Kim are in. Neither you or Sasha are in this particular state, but here in North Carolina, we have a situation where we have a governor that is of one party, a lieutenant governor that is of another. Now he is running for governor from his own party, that being Mark Robinson. He's running against Josh Stein, the Democratic candidate, and all along those lines. But there has been some interesting things because apparently if you leave the state, then you are no longer the governor. So there was talk about what was going to be the special event that Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson was going to be doing because he announced that he was going to do that yesterday and everything. And apparently, according to the North Carolina Constitution, if the governor leaves the state, the lieutenant governor becomes acting governor. So he's temporarily in charge because Roy Cooper is actually in Japan, and he announced that he's part of a delegation going to the Southeast United States for a Japan Economic Development Conference in Tokyo. And there's been questions as to whether he might sign some things into the bill that then Cooper has to unsign. And then there's definitely, he did come out with a strong support of Israel, and all along those lines, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson did, and he also
good for him.
The comments that he had made that some people in the past had thought were anti-Semitic and all along those lines. But it's just interesting that here in this particular state, that if you leave the state, because we are one of the states that you can have that you don't have to have be in the same party. You can be in different parties and have the different jobs. I think this happened a few here in North Carolina, and it might have happened in some other states as well. But I just found that interesting that he could literally unravel, and I'm not saying he is, because I don't know when Cooper comes back, but he could literally unravel some things, and then Cooper would have to turn around.
Doesn't that seem moronic in this day and age to have that kind of a rule? I mean, people can travel and still stay in contact with everyone. I mean, maybe in the 19th century that was a good idea, but it seems crazy now.
Oh, I agree. I don't understand it, and that's even I think what some of the people were saying on the Democratic side here was that he can definitely still be in touch with and maintain the running of the state, even if he is.
Joe Biden goes overseas, Kamala Harris isn't the president. You know, it just seems crazy to me. So, anyways,
I was going to go back to me because I agree with you. It's not like they're out of touch with communications or. You know, they can probably perform just as good, if not better, from where they're at in other countries, because now they can assess some of the things that are going on in other countries and react quickly, responsibly to a lot of things. So I think you're absolutely correct. And maybe we should demand an answer as to why that is.
Yeah, might have to figure out why that is and why that is the case here.
I think it's 1950, 1900, early 1800 century laws that they never grew up.
There's a lot of those, unfortunately. But Mark, I wanted to go back. You said that there seems to be a breakthrough in the Speaker of the House, and I'm not so sure that that's true. So I want to check the facts with you. Right now, there seems to be a Republican coalition around a candidate. But it seems to me he still lacks the total number of votes.
I backtracked even on my own statements when I was saying that. But yes, it is not officially named yet. I mean, he is the front runner, Scalise is, and everything. But you still have to have the majority votes, and he is still trying to get that coalition of votes and all along those lines. So it is still
the MAGA hat wearers in Congress are voting against him because he, he's not going to be crazy. He's not crazy enough for it. I mean, he's a very hard right guy, but not hard right enough, not insane enough, not extreme enough.
There's the possibility, and this would be interesting because you mentioned earlier, and this has been going on for a few minutes. There are some folks that are thinking that they need to go back to who they already had. So Representative Lawler, who is one of the GOP representatives, said that he won't support Scalise and he thinks McCarthy may yet return as a candidate. So what is this notion of, they kicked him out. Now they might be willing to have him back. So what is folks' thoughts around that? Because there is some notion that he may make a return trip and all in that space if they can't find somebody. And I think Sasha had mentioned this before, and I've heard some people that have speculated that maybe even getting Trump to be the Speaker of the House, which I don't know that is something that would be seen favorably by a lot of folks either. But definitely
that can't happen. The Democrats would never vote for it. He wouldn't be able to get enough votes. I don't believe it.
Yeah, well, you got to have, that's the math problem that Scalise has, because I think we were talking on another show about the Electoral College, and apparently even in this race, you have to have 217 votes in order to be Speaker. So nobody has that amount, and they apparently are going tit for tat. And, like I said, there is a front runner, but even the front runner doesn't have the necessary votes. So this could be lasting for.
I wish Nick were here. Can I just go in and start firing these people? Because I'm sick of their BS and not getting the job done and doing this.
Instead of getting the job done, what they're saying is they prefer chaos. They prefer no leader to having a leader that won't do their bidding. And this is a small minority of the Republicans in Congress. This is not the majority of Republicans.
What kind of democracy is it if they fire somebody because he wouldn't do their bidding? Right. So, that's not a democracy. That's hypocrisy in the greatest.
You said something earlier, Kim, that I want to get back to as well, because I agree with you, but I also am a little bit have some thoughts around that and everything as well, because I do think that when you go to Congress and you go to the any of the national institutions, including the presidency, that you are there for the people and the entirety of the people. But I do know that a lot of times when you are elected, people expect you to do well by your own area as well. So that's where I might have a little bit of pushback on you, because I'm thinking that like whoever was elected in San Francisco, and I'm just using San Francisco as an example because I know that that's where Jim's at and everything, that they might want the legislature to encourage business to come back to that San Francisco area, or to kind of like benefit them in that particular area that elected them as well. So I do think that they have a responsibility to the entirety of the nation, but I also think that they are probably obligated to do some things for their own hometowns and home communities as well.
Yeah. I think that's valid, Mark. People have a responsibility to their constituency, but what we don't need is people saying, "Okay, I'm going to put some jobs in my backyard by building like fighter jets that we don't need." The military doesn't want them, but it might employ more people in my district, so I'm going to push this bill through. That's the kind of nonsense that people have to rise above. They have to support their constituents, of course, but you also have to do what's best for the country. When people start thinking about their country rather than their parties, we'll be further along.
No, I can definitely see that. I can definitely agree with that and everything. Don't ask me why. I probably maybe had too much time on my hands, Sasha, and everything. But I did hear a little bit of a rally speech from Mr. Trump and everything. And that was one of the things that he was talking about, was that former president, was this notion of doing more for the petrol industry and the fossil fuel industry. And I'm going like, hey, there's other things other than fossil fuel that people might not be as much wanting, and they might want something better than the fossil fuel. But he was talking about a pipeline that could come through, as he put it, the poor parts of New York, and all along those lines that could bring, because this was a rally in New Hampshire, that could bring them the necessary gas that they needed. And then of course he was hyping himself up because the man is very full of ego and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to hear these speeches. Of course, he was making all kinds of cracks on Mr. Biden, including saying that he would run across the wall and everything. But I think people forget that he's had some bumbling moments himself. So Mr. Trump is not beyond bumbling and not beyond falling and doing some of the other things. So to think that tit for tat works and you don't have to answer for your own problems is also problematic as well.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Sasha, but I think we're looking at two parties. We're looking at Biden and Trump. And I don't see anybody pulling enough votes away from either one of them to make a difference. It's really going to be down to the choice between the two of those.
Well, I was speaking with Nick today, and hi, Nick. He's at the fair, the state fair. Oh. And he hates crowds. So, go Nick. And we were talking a little bit about this, and I guess some polls have been out there, and I've actually heard this as well, that more and more people are leaning, if we can get a good independent candidate, so many people are leaning out of their parties right now, searching, and it has jumped up to almost 60%. Of one, and again, you can't trust a poll because you don't know how far it went, but almost 60% of the people were saying that they would delightfully go independent at this point in the game, because the Republicans and the Democrats were just they're all for themselves, right? They're all about spreading fear, contention, pointing blame. They're not about solving the problems. They're about shutting down the government, which is their vacation, paid vacation. They get paid, but the rest of the people who work for the government, they don't when it shuts down. So
Kim, the reason I'm laughing is because, and maybe Jim can relate to what I'm about to say, but this has been an argument that has been out there from some of the people that have been considered militants for a number of years and everything, whether that was AIM, which is the American Indian Movement, whether that was Malcolm X, or whether that was definitely even Martin Luther King, who is considered to be a moderate, has said, and even Nelson Mandela, when he was living, have said that the Republicans and the Democrats are basically just the opposite ends of the same coin. So which means that there's not much difference between them. And
Ralph Nader said that in the 60s. He was very strident about that, and he got a lot
Who said that in the 60s?
Ralph Nader.
Yes.
He was very much like you're not choosing. But both choices are bad. Both choices are equally bad.
Yep, so Nader was definitely another one that said that. Definitely a number of people, both on the environmental side, the Vietnamese side, even some of the folks in the women's liberation conversations have all said that, because they have basically said that, unfortunately, and a lot of them might even be some of those people that are on those sides, that they are beholden to a lot of the lobbies and beholden to these power interests. So it's not even necessarily that they believe what they are saying themselves, but they are believing what the pocketbook is telling them to say. And all
I do think that, you know, the majority of Americans believe that Congress is broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, there's not that many people that think it's working well. Let's put it that way. Or that it's really doing its job at all. You know, we have trouble passing when the bills come due to pay, we have trouble paying the bills, getting enough agreement to keep the government open. You know, so, you know, this is like a stark incompetence is what we're seeing. And how that's going to change, that's a subject of Change Your Mind tomorrow.
Yeah, but now it's not just a conversation here in the United States, because I do not have, like I said, I have a relative that moved up there, met his then wife, even though they are now in I think the divorce is final, but they have definitely gone their separate ways. But he definitely went there to meet his bride, meaning that he's up there in the general area where Sasha is. Only I think he might be in Ottawa or one of the other provinces and all along those lines. But I understand that the politics are not exactly safe, to say the least. So they have their own dramas that go on in Canada and other parts of the world that Sasha is very much familiar with. But Sasha, is some of this tit for tat and the parties not being that far from each other also an issue there in Canada as well? Because we are world politics, and I'm thinking that Trudeau is not exactly the most liked person in Canada from my understanding. But like I said, I only have a couple of relatives and a couple of friends in that area, not tons of them, but you live there. So how is it perceived in Canada, the political landscape, and do people have the same kind of distaste of politics there as they do here?
Mark, you're a blessed person. You're living on a different planet in a different world. You just don't understand what's happening today. What's happening now in the world. You don't understand that the left all over the world is being now united behind Hamas and Palestine. There is a warning in Toronto today that tomorrow there will be atrocities against Jewish people in Toronto and all over the province. And they suggest people don't leave your place unless necessary. Stay inside. We live in 2023. Canada is supposed to be a free country, democratic country, beautiful country, and so on. Canada sent 2 Hercules airplanes to Israel to evacuate all Canadians from Israel. The situation in the world actually is best characterized by a statement from one that I follow on Facebook. Russian defeat in Ukraine would likely bring an end to the Putin regime and the cancer it propagates throughout the world, including Hamas. Russia is a cancer that only brings evil to the entire world. So now Russia is not alone. Now it's being joined by Syria, Iran, North Korea. Thankfully, China is staying a little bit away from all this madness, okay, at least for now. So there are many countries that are sympathizers of Hamas, Palestine. So there is a very clear 2 camps are now being formed in the world. One is with all this people rooting for atrocities, for killings of innocent children. I saw yesterday absolutely fantastic interview with the father of a 9-year-old girl who was missing, and it was unclear whether she was killed or she was taken by Hamas. Right. And finally, he was told that she was killed. And he says, yes, because to him, the horror would be if she would be taken hostage by Hamas, and she would be tortured, raped, and die anyway. Okay, so when he heard that no, she died, he was ecstatic. She was so happy. Can you imagine?
Well, first off, I can't imagine that, and I don't think. But first off,
Israel died.
yeah,
I
no,
never heard anything like that in my entire life.
no, and this is an atrocity, and Hamas is
And
definitely
war,
doing the
that
atrocious
is
act and everything. But I don't think that it's fair
Unfortunately.
for you to say, Sasha, that that is the view of everybody on the left or everybody that
I
is
just said what I
progressive
saw
and
on
everything.
CNN. Maybe
Yes, you
CNN
said
is
that,
lying.
well, but it's all
Maybe they're
CNN. That is one
manufacturing
news
all the
source,
stories.
and everything
I
along those
just
lines.
said
I
what
mean,
I
Jim
saw
Eid,
with my
hold on a
own
second. Jim
eyes
Eid is
on
actually there
CNN.
in California,
What are you
which is
trying
a
to
nature
tell
of
us?
progressiveness. Of
Okay, what are you
hold on
trying
a
to
second, because you
say?
cannot say
I
that
can
across the
hear
board.
you.
There are folks
What
that have
is
been
it?
on the progressive side that have clearly come out against Hamas, have clearly come out against this atrocity and everything. So for you to say that it is a left-right kind of thing, or progressive and a non-progressive thing, is an unfair statement. Because I've heard some progressives, including some
let me-
that are of
let me
left
jump in on
other
this.
My
background that have
opinion. It's
stated
not
that they
theirs,
are
but
against
my
what took place and
personal
everything. So
opinion.
that is an
And
unfair
I'm
statement.
entitled to have my own opinion.
You're
And
entitled to
yes,
your opinion. I mean, as a Ukrainian Jew, you're entitled to your opinion all day long. Yes, yes, I do know your
absolutely.
background as well and everything as well.
Let
So
me
you're
jump in
entitled
and
to
say
your
that
opinion and all
the
in
New
that
York
space.
Times had
But
a
I am
column.
saying that it is unfair for you to make blanket statements.
New
My
York Times had a
statement
column
also
with Bret
includes
Stephens.
American universities, which are all left-infested institutions, and they are on the side of Hamas and
Not every
Palestine and all the
university is
evil in
on
the
is a
world.
left
They
infested, and
are admiring
not every
Putin
university
and
is
Trump
on the
and
side of
all
Hamas.
the
I can
idiots.
tell you right now where
Enjoy.
we are at
Oh,
Duke, there are some very devout
that's
Jewish
Well,
communities
I'm-
that are very much in support of Israel. So don't
I'm
go there
not
on
going
the
to just
university.
listen to the interviews that are going on right now. There's been a long history between Palestine and Israel, a very long history. And in fact, the History Channel probably has the best documented time, day, events ever to just sit there and go through that. And I did that this morning when I was having my coffee and just relaxing a little bit and taking a deep breath, because I know
That's how you relax, Kim.
yeah, no, right.
Well,
But
like I just told you, I relaxed.
I know
Yeah,
that
but I
there's
just told you, I
more to
relaxed
this
by
because
stumbling
I
across the
grew
Trump
up
speech.
hearing Palestine and Israel, Israel and Palestine, and there was a peace treaty that they engaged in, and something
Camp David Accords. Yeah.
right, and something Putin said
Sorry, it
just
was
clicked,
between
and I don't
Egypt
like
and,
Putin,
Israel.
but something he said kind of clicked in my brain a little bit, that this is all US's fault, and I'm like, why would he say that? So I went through the time, date, and events, and I saw why he said that, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? He is dead on. This whole
Who is
thing,
that? Whom are you talking about?
Putin.
Putin. He's a war criminal. He is a person who should be in The Hague.
Sometimes we're not any better, Sasha.
It
What
doesn't
I'm
matter.
saying-
It doesn't
So,
matter. I don't
what-
know
what
any
I
American
saw-
president who would be
Jim, go
recognized
look
as
at the
criminal.
timelines tomorrow.
Okay, Putin is one. Okay, he is
Go look
recognized
at the
in the whole
timeline.
world as a war criminal. His methods, actually, what
methods
Hamas
suck.
did just a few days ago is not different from what Russian
Well, I
soldiers
have
did in
learned
Ukraine.
Sasha,
Many
but there have
years
been-
ago, I have learned that when you have a conflict between two individuals,
It's not a conflict. Come on.
There is going
This
to
is
be
not a conflict. I will not allow the word conflict in this contest. It's a brazen attack, horrendous execution of innocent people.
What about all the times that Israel
about the
No,
attacked?
forget about all the times.
That goes
There's
on
no
in the
excuse.
of the
There is no
Palestinians.
all the times. We are talking about this time. In
Well, and in this time,
2005,
we
I
can
don't
also talk
care.
about
I
ethnic
don't
cleansing.
care. I
If
look
you
at
study today,
when
you
you
must
have a
understand what
situation,
happened
Sasha.
in 2005. In
But-
2005, General Sharon took all Israeli forces out of Gaza.
You know, when men
Out.
flex their muscles and push
100%.
each
There
other
were
around
no
just
more
as boys
Israel
will be
state in
boys.
Gaza. So what he said
But when
is,
you escalate it to
from
death,
now,
you
no,
will have-
will not allow this.
You-
Hold on a second.
You're all
Sasha.
offended.
Let
always
Kim-
be-
hold on a second. Let Kim speak.
We will
Wait a second.
never, ever
When
settled for peace.
Hold on a second,
When
Sasha. Let
Israeli
me
army was taken out of Gaza
killed who
completely in 2005, Sharon, who was Prime Minister of Israel, he said to Gaza people, now you can create a second Singapore. Now you're free to run your country the way you want to run it. Elect anybody you want to elect and build a prosperity and normal, prosperous country. That's what was set in 2005 when all 100% Israeli army was taken out of Gaza. So what Gaza did in this 18 years since 2005, there was no longer Israeli army there. They could build a prosperous society. What did they do?
Like I said,
I just know that the United States, when they were working on the peace treaty, and this goes way back. Some of this stuff goes way back before Christ.
I would like to repeat my question again, though. I would like to repeat my question again. And you will answer my question before you're going to talk nonsense. You will answer my question. Kim, here's my question. In 2005, Israel took all its armed forces out of Gaza. General Sharon said, from now on, you can create a prosperous country, a second Singapore. Please do it. What Hamas did, or Palestine, or Gaza, what did they do in this 18 years from 2005?
First off, Sasha, let me ask you, Kim, what were the conditions that were given? Because usually there are conditions when you do such things along those lines. And I do not remember those times, but I can go back and we can look it up and we can find it out, because there were usually conditions that are laid out in those spaces. So I doubt
what conditions are you talking about, Mark? What
So-
conditions are you talking about?
So here's what you had, this peace treaty that they were trying to do, and the U.S. got involved and butt their nose in like they always do. And this is the reason why we had the 9/11 attack. If you really look at why they attacked us, is because we kept butting our nose in where we probably shouldn't have, and upset somebody on another side. So what you have is you have that there was this peace treaty. But then,
what peace treaty are you talking about, Kim?
So
there were several peace treaties. There was the Camp David Accord. There was
okay, so you're talking about treaties or treaty. What are you talking about, Kim?
So there was so there was some stuff going in 1967. The agreement was signed in 1993. The Yasser Arafat returned to Gaza. He headed up newly formed Palestine Authority. But then you go into, and again, they have their right wings and left wings as well.
Yes,
but then you get into, they're started stirring things up. There is a treaty. I'm looking for it. But they went in and all of a sudden the U.S. picked up and moved its facilities from.
Where did you get this information again? What are you talking about? Where did you take it from?
History Channel. If you go
History
to the
Channel, okay,
and look up Palestine.
Okay, you can forget about your History Channel, because you're talking about complete, not connected events. A little bit of here, a little bit of there. Here is
it's all connected.
All things are related.
It just doesn't make any sense. Period.
Sasha, it's all connected. It goes date, time, event.
It is connected.
Now let's go back 5,000 years ago when there were Jews.
Well, these things are very complicated.
That's my point.
Simple. Very single-minded question. Okay, there were atrocities, there were fights, there were treaties, this and that. So it was all ended in 2005 when Israel completely took its armed forces out of Gaza. Is this in your History Channel? Did they talk about it?
They talked about that. They also talked about some of the things that went in on that History Channel. They also talked about some of the broken agreements, including ethnic cleansing, and some of the things that are still going on on the Palestinian side as well.
Mark? What are
Sasha, like I said, there is the natures of the one of the things that I said, because I was watching something earlier today as well. I was watching actually a Nelson Mandela interview where he was being tried to, I think it was Ted Koppel was trying to force him into taking a stance against Arafat, and he decided not to take a stance against Arafat because they, in his mind, were fellow freedom fighters. Now, do I necessarily agree with him 100%? No, not necessarily the case, but I also think that he was saying something very powerful. You can watch it on our what do we call that show? From the Vault show, which is our history show.
Would you agree that
he has some very powerful comments, including how we should be leadership and the nature of world leadership.
Would you agree that Yasser Arafat was the greatest freedom fighter in all history of Palestine? Or was it somebody greater than Yasser Arafat?
Right. So when you go through,
there were folks that
about 2005.
I mean, Yasser Arafat was considered a force by the PLO, but a lot of people are not the biggest backers of the PLO. I know some Palestinians that are not the biggest fans of the PLO, just like they're not the biggest fans of Hamas and everything. And that's why I was saying that these blanket statements we were making earlier are not fair either. Just like that blanket statement about the university. And that's what I was going to get to Jim. Jim, hold on a second. Jim, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on.
1 second.
Hold on. You've been glancing all the time.
1 second. I will hold.
Let me get to Jim.
That's it. Done.
Jim, hold on.
Done.
No, hold on. Jim, no. Hold on.
1 second already done. What are you going to say? Say something what I never heard in my life. Say something.
Well, like I said, give me a chance. Hold on a second. I play whole politics and everything. You want some politics? We have some real fun politics there. Jim, you live in California and everything. You live in an area that is considered to be very much of the left bubble and all in that space. I don't say that against anybody that's at Berkeley or a number of other places, but can't you agree with me that there are some people, even at Berkeley, that definitely are supporters of and are backers of Israel, just like there are people that are there that are backers of Palestine. So I don't think that it's fair question to make even though Berkeley is a very much considered a left-wing center and everything.
Absolutely. And I had a dean of Stanford University over for dinner last night. And, he thought that Stanford's statement was very weak and didn't show enough support. And I think that, Stanford has since then come out with a stronger statement. So, their support and the absolute appalling reaction to what Hamas did, I think, is nearly universal. And I do think that we're getting some comments there that is slightly distracting me. But I think that what I wanted to say was that there's a very interesting comment by Bret Stephens in the New York Times. And Bret Stephens is a very well-known, great writer, good conservative, mainstream conservative. And he talked a little bit about what Sasha did. He talked about in terms of there's been a lot of left support for the Palestinians and for the Palestinians. And this goes down to we want a two-state solution. And that was the thing that everybody kind of thought would happen one day. And after the Camp David Accords, people thought it was a possibility. And we all lived in this world that this is going to happen. But, the problem is that these ethnic difficulties get inflamed. Like Israel will build settlements on Palestinian land, then all of a sudden they get inflamed. And these types of things are so complicated and so long in the history goes so far back that it's a mistake for us to ever try to simplify them, because they're not simple. They're very complex. And the issues go way back, and people there's blame on all sides. I don't think Bibi has done a very good job of making things calmer, easier. Everybody seems to escalate, but there's no question when you commit an act of terrorism, you're wrong. And
I agree, but hear me out on this from the beginning of time. If there's ever an incident, a conflict or a situation between two entities and, they bully each other and push each other, that's just, the name of the game. But the minute one kills the other, you ignite a fire. you will never put out.
Well, what is Israel
Just
supposed
look
to
at
do?
Ireland. You killed this person, so I'm going to kill this person. You know,
How long did those
so I'm going
troubles
to kill
last?
you. You're going to kill me. I'm going to kill you. You know, and it goes back and forth. You're never going to put that fire out, no matter how often you try to get these people to sit down, because the hate never leaves. That because you killed someone that is in my family or in
Well,
my.
let me give you an example of where it did work out, and this is in Germany invades France, and this is in World War II. So the right-wing French people created the Vichy government, which went along with the Nazis, but the leftists formed the French resistance, and they fought the Germans until they were able to be successful. So we've got to be real careful when we do this left-right nonsense, because the things are very complicated here. The left is also always against fascism. And what is Putin? He's a fascist. Come on.
Of course he is.
Yeah. So what we have is totalitarian regimes that want to put their states in charge of more ground, more people, more everything. And then Russia wants to expand, you know, and the Arab world wants Israel wiped off the map. Now, most of the Arab world, I would say a solid percentage of it has come to understand that Israel has a right to exist. But there are some entities, Hezbollah, Hamas, who still say they have no right to exist, and they will fight to the death, and they don't care. They have dehumanized Jews. So when they kill a Jewish child, they don't think of it as taking the life of a young human being. Now, this is a sickness. This goes back to Nazi Germany. We see this over and over again throughout history. You know, people cannot dehumanize other human beings. That is evil. We must think of each other as human beings and treat each other as human beings. And that means the wars of the past have got to be, you've got to get over it. Yes, you could point to what they've done to you, and that was a never-ending pointing match. And when you're pointing at somebody, three fingers are pointing back at you. Everybody's got something to blame. Everybody's done something wrong. United States.
Well, here's where I want to point out something of very interesting. We need to be careful, okay, because we are being blamed for certain things, and the reason is that in 2017 they were trying to remake, I think, Gaza a state, but they weren't including Israel. Israel didn't like the guidelines or whatever, but then the U.S. picked up and they moved over to Israel. And they sat with Israel. So U.S. was making a positional point and saying, we're going to stand with Israel. We're not going to be peacemakers. We're not going to, but they weren't fighting the Hamas and the Palestinians, everybody. They're just, you know, arguing over a piece of land.
Sorry, Kim. Kim, I don't understand
anything.
At
the end of the day, there was no fighting or
Hamas
cutting off heads or rapes. They were just saying, this is what we want. These are the terms we want. And U.S. picked up and moved over here. And they shouldn't have. And we should be afraid, because these people are not afraid to be suicide bombers, to come into our country.
They will be all gone in 2 weeks.
They're not afraid to do that.
There will be nobody to die in 2 weeks. There will be all history. There will be no more Hamas.
Well, how do you wipe out
the Palestinians?
How do you wipe out the Palestinians?
All Hamas fighters.
You can't kill all the Palestinians. They're innocent.
Hold on. I'm talking about Hamas. I'm not talking about Palestinians. I'm talking about Hamas. All Hamas fighters will be liquidated.
How?
Maximum killed.
How?
They will be all killed.
They've been using human shields.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There will be some innocence. There will be collateral damage.
Some collateral damage. Yes.
There will be collateral damage. You cannot avoid it. There is a crime. There is a punishment. In 2005, Gaza was giving opportunity to build Second, Singapore. There were no more Israelis on their land.
Lots of poor
It's
countries
so-
have had the opportunity to become
Okay.
wealthy
Oh,
countries.
so
It's not that
say.
simple,
So
Sasha.
say so. Sorry, we
It's not
can't
that
kill
simple,
Singapore.
Sasha.
We
Yeah.
cannot
We're
cover
getting
it.
ready to,
All we can
we're
do
getting ready
is
to wind
kill
down.
you.
We've only got a few
All
more
All
minutes. We
the
got to get ready
program
to
of
get to.
Hamas is to kill as many Israelis as possible. That's all
No
reason
one's
why they
defending
exist.
Hamas. Sasha.
There is
No
a
one's
Nobody's
reason
defending
defending
why
Hamas at all. Nobody
Palestinian
is defending
women
Hamas
have
whatsoever.
10 kids and
Who's
sometimes
defending
What
more
about
to bring
about in
more fighters and more
2014?
killers into the world. This is the only reason why Hamas exists, to kill as many Israelis as possible.
Not really,
That's
because
still
in
stop. The
No,
end.
they
Hamas
were
is
agreeing
Yeah.
to
mean,
a deal.
Hold on a second. Hold
They
on a
were
second.
unifying.
Let's
They were unifying in 2014. Why didn't it complete?
I
It
don't
didn't
remember
complete
what was in
because
2014. I know what's happened in October 7th of 2023. This is a
know the incident, and
capital
everybody agrees that that was a
crime.
horrible incident. Nobody
It
is
is a
There
denying
is a
that. and
crime, there
everything.
has to be punishment.
But there were-
I totally
Period.
agree with you.
What are you
No,
discussing?
we agree with you, but there have been crimes that have been
It doesn't
out there
matter,
before
Mark,
and
it
everything.
doesn't
There have been
matter.
even Israeli crimes that
Doesn't matter.
nobody
What's
has
happened
answered
on
for,
October
and all
7th
along
is
those lines. There's a whole conversation that we could get into,
alone
but
event.
we're not going to get
Okay,
into it
so
on this particular show about the nature of Zionism, whether
doesn't
Zionism
matter.
is a
It's
positive
time
thing in Israel
now.
or not.
well,
Crime
Because
was
that is a
already
conversation
committed.
that also exists in
Now the
political play.
punishment
Am I
is
not
coming.
right, Jim? That's a whole other
Hello.
conversation that exists.
so
Punishment is
2014, just go look it up. 2014, the Hamas and the Fatah, they were trying to unify. They were working on unifications. There had been bloody wars in between 2007, 2006, and there have been on and go.
Between
But
whom?
they decided that they could unify, that they could potentially make things work. But then in 2018, the U.S. took a side, and they really shouldn't have.
What did
done.
they do exactly? What the U.S. exactly did? Tell me.
They picked up and moved their position, the embassy, over to Israel.
What
Between
does it have to
2016
do
and
with
2000,
Hamas or Fatah?
And that
It's decision of
was
the United States.
that was
So
a
what
signal
is it?
that the Americans supported Jerusalem and the Israel's capital. That was a signal to
Jerusalem is Israeli capital. There is no other nation or
but
tribe or bandits have any rights to Jerusalem.
I understand
No,
that.
it's
But
not necessarily
the
a
United
right move or a
States
wrong
had
move,
a-
but
the
it's
United
United
States
States
had a
is
Trump was
responsibility to
president at
pay.
the time. We were
So
making
they
a lot of
moved
enemies
from Tel
throughout
Aviv
the world.
to Jerusalem.
He was
What
buddying
does
up
it
to
make
Trump,
difference?
to Putin, and he was buddying up to Kim. He was associating himself and America with fascists, with terrorists. So that administration made a lot of blunders. There's no question about it. From 2016 to 2020, we were not a well-managed country by any stretch of the notion. So, when we did policy moves like that, yes, it inflamed certain people in the Arab world. Absolutely, it did.
And
Was
here
it
comes
necessary?
October 7th.
Maybe not. I'm
There
not
come
up for that.
October 7th. So they say, okay, U.S. is guilty. They moved in 2017.
Yeah, the embassy move does not
Okay,
excuse.
So now we're going
Hamas's
to kill
actions.
Israelis as many as possible. Okay,
No.
that's your logic, Jim.
But are you attributing that to me?
No, but you're trying to associate the move of U.S. embassy in 2017 from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This is private U.S. business. They could move it instead of Jerusalem. They could move it to Haifa.
I'm not associating it with anything, Sasha. Please don't attribute things to me that I did not say.
No, but you put together two events.
I did not. I did not.
Sorry.
What I said was that the Israel move, the embassy move, may have inflamed people, but that's no excuse. This is what I said. That's no excuse for what Hamas
He says
did.
no excuse. It's
So
no
don't
excuse.
tell me that I conflated the two. I did not.
No, what I'm saying,
then why
just
to
because
discuss the
that
move of
happened,
U.S. embassy? What that has to do with
I
any
agree
of
with
the
you.
events?
Kim brought it up,
I
and
will-
my response
Kim,
is
why
it's
do
a
you
young
bring up
move.
this
Because
insignificant thing?
need to be careful because of these historical events. We're being blamed. What I'm saying, we are being blamed for
Listen,
things.
let me tell you one thing. Americans are not the brightest people in the world. That's for sure. But America is the strongest country in the world. That's for sure. So use your power. Don't use your brain, which you have none. Use
I
your
think that's
power.
been the problem all along, Sasha, is men using their power, not their brain. They need
Because
to put
you
the
have no
rocket
brain,
back
you
in their
have power.
pocket.
Use your
we were
power.
led by a dumb person.
Use your power. No
They
brain,
need to put the rocket
power.
back in their
Use power. If you have no brain, why would you try to do something where brains are required?
So the
Forget
thing
about
is we should have left it alone, or we should have
Maybe.
stayed put and stayed and
It's
kept
irrelevant.
our embassy.
I think anybody who blames the move of the embassy for what's happening now is wrong.
But
The
you
move of
weren't
the
there.
embassy could have been
You weren't
controversial, and it was controversial, but it
Keith,
has no bearing on
if-
what Hamas did.
A question. If
No, it
embassy would
doesn't
not
make
be
what
moved,
Hamas did right. I think
No,
it had
it does
every
not.
bearing to
but
what
you
Hamas
It has
you
no bearing.
refuse,
None.
Tim, you refuse to recognize
don't think it's
atrocities
right.
committed by Hamas. You're talking about move of embassy. You're
I
talking
think
about
we just need to be
historical
careful.
events for the last 5,000 years. You're talking about all kind of nonsense which is irrelevant here. What is relevant was
we
happened
need to
on
be
October
careful.
7th. Period.
Sasha's
That's
right
it.
about this. America is stupid and it does not learn from its mistakes. This is the mistakes we've made in Southeast Asia. We duplicate them again in Afghanistan. We do the same things we should learn from, and we don't. Now, we've made a number of mistakes in the Mideast. There's no question about it. But we had great men who were great people and after their presidency, like Jimmy Carter, and who was very intelligent. And he got people to sit down and talk, and it looked like we were making progress. Now, when we elect an idiot like Trump, and he's in charge of it, we're going to make blunders, and we're going to kiss up to terrorists like Putin, and then we're going to make more mistakes and infuriate more people in the world. So we have to elect people who will do the best for the country of America and live up to its ideals. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
You're not surprised why Putin and Trump admire each other openly.
Yeah. Trump wants to be president for life.
And again, I'm just saying we need to be
He's a dumb
careful
man.
because of the historical events that have occurred. We need to be on watch. We need to be very careful about our next steps. We need to take a look back
We
at
don't
why
understand
they are
Southeast
doing
Asia.
this.
We don't understand the Middle East. We need to be very careful. And anything we do there, we usually get it wrong.
Well, because they do everything based in the name of God. But that's what they say
God
it
on
is.
October 7th?
They do everything based in their name of religion.
Whether it's a Jewish God or Muslim God or whatever God, how the God was involved on October 7th.
Let's not go back to the Crusades. We could do that. We had one God fighting against another God, and whose God was stronger. That's crazy. That's nuts.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying,
that's
that's why they do it. That's how they encourage the people.
Sit down and talk to each other.
Right. They don't know how. Men don't know how to sit down and talk to each other.
There is no talk. There is no talk. Palestinians in Gaza, they were left alone in 2005. They were left alone. All army of Israel was out. Build whatever you want to build, Singapore or Malaysia or just whatever.
Why does it have to be war?
It's poverty stricken. So, you're not going to build a new Singapore overnight.
Think about this. They have nothing left to lose. They have nothing left to lose.
So then you kill people, right? And how is that?
They do. That's Gladiator style. Watch the movie Gladiator.
You're trying to justify what's happened on October 7th. They're nice people. They're good people, but they have nothing to leave. They're poor, so therefore they kill people.
Tim, it's about time to wrap up.
The majority of the Palestinians aren't killing anyone.
Show, but I was going to.
Go ahead,
Mark. Mark.
Yep.
Okay,
I think we're going to have to wrap up. Coco show and everything. I was going to.
But I want to yell some more.
Definitely Jim was saying and everything, because definitely Christianity has been used to justify slavery. It's been used to justify a lot of things and all along those lines. And it is definitely some poverty. And, there's also the measure of who is being funded. So there's a lot of money that's going into Israel as well. But we can talk about this on the World Politics on Tuesday.
Well, and I also want to bring up one more thing. I just want to bring up one more emphasis is just because somebody has had cancer does not disqualify them for running for any office, and anyone who to say so should be kicked out of office.
Amen.
Definitely.
All right.
And on that
Thank
note,
you
we're getting ready
for
to get on out of
joining
here.
us,
We'll
everyone, and
definitely
we'll
have
see
more
you
conversation
Tuesday night.
on Tuesday on world politics. Of course, we have World Edition tomorrow. But right now, hopefully, folks are going to tune in to Coco, where they won't be debating. They'll be listening to music, but that is our music.
Okay.
So, and all along those lines. So we'll be having some conversations around music and all along those lines, even though there might be a historian as well. But right now, let's get on out of here.